Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space for all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan, support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We actually just dropped a thought piece this past Sunday, so be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available wherever podcasts are playing, and we've provided you with access to a few links down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les meufs et les mecs, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is education. On the topic of education, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this off-grid lifestyle. I think that there's too many things that are really subject to convention, and some of the convention is really propaganda or a very extreme view of what it means to live off-grid. And I talked a little bit about being consumption conscious and how that is its own learning curve. And part of that learning curve is all of the different ways that people live off-grid. So currently I'm learning how to live off-grid right now, and I have to say that it is a spectrum. There are some people who treat off-grid like a religion, and so it's very anti-technology. So that's not the off-grid that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like living a lifestyle that is devoid of running water, devoid of, showers, hot water, devoid of like just the standard technology that we typically have in a regular household. I'm more so talking about just being unplugged from the grid, right? So that means that we live in a way where we're not getting an electricity bill every month. We're self-sustaining by way of the electricity that powers the technology that is at play and at work within our home setting. And so that's more so what I mean when I live off-grid, and also when I think about off-grid, what I've experienced. Some people consider off-grid more of a religion, and other people more of it's more of a practicality. And so I'm of the mindset where it's more of a practicality. I don't treat off-grid as a religion. I'm not someone who is an anarchist, and I think a lot of people think off-grid and they automatically think people who are anti-government, who are anarchists, and who just completely are very paranoid about the system in general. And I'm not any of those things. While I do have my apprehensions, as I believe most people do, I just believe that with the way the world is going, with the way that a lot of our energy resources are monopolized, or like there's an oligopoly that kind of controls all of those main resources, I think the best way for us to diversify that monopoly is to kind of be standalone. And now that we have the technology to be standalone, to be just well versed in what technology would really help us become self-sustaining. And so I'm of the mindset of having an off-grid lifestyle that isn't so far beyond what I would typically experience living in a suburb or living in a city. It's just that like I'm the one who, like with a solar panel, with a generator, I'm the one that's really generating the energy around me. And I also believe, I firmly believe, and not in a religious way, but in a practical way, that we have to be more connected to earth in that, like having our own garden, having our own, livestock to some extent. So I'm learning a little bit about that, but it's also about learning like what livestock would make sense for the kind of lifestyle that I'm hoping to lead, right? And because I don't believe that I would be the kind of person who would be able to kill my livestock, like that's not really the way that I would see it. I'm more so looking at livestock that would help me deal with grazing or like manage my land, and like what would I want to use my land for. So it's like, okay, well, would I want an orchard? If I want an orchard, what kind of fruit trees would I want on it? Like what kinds of things do I want to be self-sustaining with? Like what kind of fruits, what kind of vegetables do I want to be self-sustaining with by way of my household? Like what kinds of technologies are long lasting? So when you start looking into panels and looking into just natural power resources, like there's solar panels, there's wind energy that you can use, and there's different ways that you can use aquatics as well. But for me, I've been looking into like panels and generators that enable you to be completely off-grid. There's no reason for you to need an electricity bill. Like at some of these generators and some of these panels that I've been able to work with and that I've had exposure to now at this stage in the game, they're still like very much juxtaposed with technology. So some of them have an app, and with the app it tells you like, how much power you have, how much watts you're using, when you should be careful about your wattage. What really is very instructive by way of how you use your energy and how you use the energy that's available to you. It tells you how much battery you have if it is the case that like you don't have any sun and it's really cloudy. It gives you a sense as to how much battery you have left before the generator kicks in. Some of these generators, they operate on gas or on diesel, and again, like I've heard very different philosophies for off-grid. So some people believe if I'm sourcing my gas externally, then that's not off-grid, and for me it is, right? So I want to just have a lifestyle where I'm self-sustaining to the extent where my power isn't being plugged into a massive grid. So when I say off-grid, that's really all that I mean. I still want all the comforts of home. I still want to have a running toilet in my home. I've experienced sort of a compound experience where like the bathroom is separate from like the main house, or just like separate from like where we sleep. And like that for me is a little bit too much. It's not my style, but I want you to know that there's a spectrum. Like you can live off-grid your way, right? And it's really just doing the research, having a sense as to what technologies are available to you. And it's not anti-technology to be off-grid. I think some people, they put those two hand in hand and they go really like back to the wilderness with their off-grid mentality. But for me, I'm like, well, how do I live the lifestyle that I want? Being more connected to earth by like, having my own garden, having maybe a small little hobby farm that helps me manage land, having lots of land where I can have maybe an orchard, or having flexibility to have like just amenities that I can create that are self-standing for myself and for the family that I hope to have one day, without it necessarily being part of what I need to pay for to experience. And I think that so much of us have like bought into this consumeristic, consumption-based lifestyle model where the things that we enjoy experiencing come at a cost. And I think that we're always paying upfront for an experience. And I think experiences in life, I mean, some of them should be at a cost, but a lot of them can be free if we build the lifestyle around it. And so when I think off-grid, I still want my off-grid to encompass technology, to encompass all of the digital exploits that we've been able to gain in this stage and phase in the game. So I love the fact that there is an app for my off-grid. That off-grid doesn't mean that I don't have internet. I definitely still have internet in my off-grid model, and I have a panel that gives me instructions by way of how much energy I have left based on the solar panel, or like how much energy I have in reserve, having a generator that isn't connected to the grid. Like, so that's more so what I mean, and that's more so what I'm aiming for. So I think we all need to educate ourselves on this spectrum. I think we need to find ourselves somewhere on the spectrum, because I do believe that giving ourselves more autonomy by way of energy makes it more accessible to everyone else. So the more people who opt out, the more that the people who are like plugged in maybe will have more diversification by way of prices and what's available, because now there's less of a market. The market isn't completely dependent on one or two or three big players, and I think that that's what we need. And that's why I think a lot of people are looking at this off-grid model, and I want to make sure that I give transparency that the model can be any way you want. So experience off-grid that's like really like out in nature, where there's like compost toilets, which are pretty much like, I think, the 2.0 version of an outhouse. Like they don't smell bad by any means, but like lots of sawdust in use. And so like that's not my style. I mean, I've tried it. I've tried a lot of different variations of off-grid to get a sense as to what I want. Like I like the off-grid where you have your own bathroom. Your bathroom is exactly as it would be if you were living in a condo in the city. It's just powered by your own energy. And so I want you to all think about all of the different ways that off-grid could potentially translate. If you're unsure if this is your first exposure to the idea that off-grid can be exactly what you're living in now, like whatever your home is now, is just you're plugged out, right? You're not plugged into a grid, but you can enjoy the amenities, the comforts of living in a city, but just without having the dependency on one or two or three big players who are probably overcharging you for the energy that you need to live your day-to-day life, right? So that's essentially what my model is. Again, it's a practical solution for me. It's not a religious solution for me. A lot of people are like I think I've met people who can be very extreme about the lifestyle and what their expectations are for people who are looking to be off grid. And like for me, like I appreciate and respect their points of view, but that's not what it is that I'm looking for when I'm looking to create a lifestyle that's off grid. Again, I want to build my beautiful country home. I want my own orchard. I want like my own garden. I want some livestock. What those livestock will be, it will depend on like what their purpose is without needing to like, again, butcher them. And I also just want to be self-reliant, to be dependent on my own energy, and then be able to buy the little amenities here and there, like gas if required, for like the little things that I enjoy at home, like whether that's a barbecue or my oven, so on and so forth. So I want to come here and give that explanation because I think a lot of people hear me talk about living off grid and they immediately think about like what Hollywood paints as off grid lifestyle, like super out in the middle of nowhere, like no interaction with people whatsoever, and just completely like almost back to the wilderness even in your mentality. There's like a very anti-government anarchist style of thinking, and that's absolutely not what I'm looking for. It's really just to have that self-reliancy. And so I think all of us should look into it. I mean, I think it's a model that is long-term the best solution because it means that you don't have to think about a life where you're paying bills continuously, right? You can start to carve out like what bills that you can absorb. You can absorb that money back. It's just one upfront cost, and then you're not having to pay a bill month by month for the rest of your life, like in perpetuity, which is what the model is now. And I think that we need to really question these models that require payments in perpetuity. And a lot of people are moving off like one-time payments. A lot of entities, a lot of technology, a lot of, suppliers and people in the market are moving off these like one-time payments for you to own something or have access to a service. And it's like a month-by-month fee. It's a licensing fee or it's a subscription fee. And these just give them the opportunity to charge you for an indefinite period of time. And I think that we need to like think about, well, how do I circumvent that? Like, how do I give myself an ecosystem where I'm paying upfront the amount that I think is appropriate to have access to this, where I'm not continuously having to go out of pocket to have access to certain amenities. And maybe let me challenge the idea that for me to have different amenities or have access to certain experiences, I'm having to pay out of pocket on a monthly or on a weekly basis. Let's challenge that model, because I think that that can be something that's so normalized that we don't realize just how exploitative it is and how oppressive it is to have to pay for any and every experience. And here in Europe, you have to pay to go to the bathroom. And I feel like that's just like a mind-blowing expectation, but it's the standard here. But it makes me feel like I need to really start pushing back on standards that I really don't agree with by building a lifestyle that gives a diversification, that gives an alternative way of living so that other people can maybe do the same. And it forces some of these players that are forcing costs on us unnecessarily to rethink their model to be a little bit more humanistic. In any case, that was really the topic for today, to give insight, to give clarity, to give perspective and periphery on the spectrum that is off-grid. It's not all extreme, it's not all anarchy, anti-government, as most people tend to believe. It can be exactly what it is that you're living now, with all the amenities you're living now. Just you absorb those monthly, weekly, daily costs by giving yourself the opportunity to be self-sustaining. So hopefully that was informative. Hopefully that was educational. Now you have a more periphery as to why that's my long-term goal. And do some research. This is really cool. It's very interesting to learn about and experience, because I was learning about it first. I was doing market analysis and off-grid solutions and how we are trying to build infrastructures in different cities really to deal with like green technology, so like hybrid cars or completely electric cars. And it was doing doing that market analysis that I started to think about, well, how can I create a home that is completely off-grid? Because we have like these smart homes that are now becoming the norm, but like how can I have a smart home, highly technical home, but that is powered by my own panel? Like how do I recreate this in a way where I can be self-sustaining, I can be off-grid without necessarily buying into the whole persona or profile of someone who is off-grid? So I will definitely provide some links for you to do your research down below. Some of the links around the market research that I've read around cities and how cities are becoming more green and more sustainable, and how building that infrastructure within a city gives people more of an opportunity to kind of parse into this off-grid model even while in a city, though that's not the model that I'm looking for, but how that can just jog your imagination and your creativity to think about, well, how can I create this for me in a way that works best for me? In any case, that was it, but definitely not all. Now, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our Facebook page, so definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above these events. So check it out. Be part of our game changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. We are on the road to 1K, so we do invite you to follow us across all of our social media platforms, and we look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.